The Jungle Book by Rudyard Kipling. Mowgli's Brothers. It was 7 o'clock of a very warm evening in the Seeonee Hills when Father Wolf woke up from his day's rest, scratched himself, yawned, and spread out his paws one after the other to get rid of the sleepy feeling in their tips. Mother Wolf lay with her big grey nose dropped across her 4 tumbling, squealing cubs, and the moon shone into the mouth of the cave where they all lived. "It's time to hunt again," said Father Wolf, and he was going to spring downhill when suddenly, from the valley below that ran down to a little river, he heard the dry, angry, snarly, sing-song whine of a tiger who has caught nothing and does not care if all the jungle knows it. "The fool," said Father Wolf, "to begin a night's work with that noise. Does Shere Khan think that our buck are like his fat Waingunga bullocks?" "Shere Khan's mother did not call him Lungri, the lame one, for nothing," said Mother Wolf quietly. "He has been lame in one foot from his birth. That is why he has only killed cattle. But it is neither bullock nor buck he hunts tonight. It is man." The whine had changed to a sort of humming purr that seemed to come from every quarter of the compass. It was the noise that bewilders woodcutters and gypsies sleeping in the open, and makes them run sometimes into the very mouth of the tiger. "Man," said Father Wolf, showing all his white teeth. "Are there not enough beetles and frogs that he must eat man? And on our ground too?" The law of the jungle, which never ordered anything without a reason, forbids every beast to eat man except when he's killing to show his children how to kill, and then he must hunt outside the hunting grounds of his pack or tribe. The reason the beasts give among themselves is that man is the weakest and most defenseless of all living things, and it is unsportsmanlike to touch him. But the real reason is that man-killing means, sooner or later, the arrival of white men on elephants with guns, and hundreds of brown men with gongs and rockets and torches. Then everybody in the jungle suffers. The purr outside grew louder, and ended in the full-throated of the tiger's charge. Then there was a howl, an untigerish howl, from Shere Khan. "He has missed," said Mother Wolf. Father Wolf ran out a few paces and heard Shere Khan muttering and mumbling savagely as he tumbled about in the scrub. "The fool has had no more sense than to jump at a woodcutter's campfire and has burned his feet," said Father Wolf with a grunt. "Something is coming uphill," said Mother Wolf, twitching one ear. "Get ready." The bushes rustled a little in the thicket, and Father Wolf dropped with his haunches under him, ready for his leap. Then, if you had been watching, you would have seen the most wonderful thing in the world. The wolf checked in mid-spring. He made his bound before he saw what it was he was jumping at, and then he tried to stop himself. The result was that he shot up straight into the air for 4 or 5 feet, landing almost where he left ground. "Man," he snapped. "A man's cub. Look." Directly in front of him, holding on by a low branch, stood a naked brown baby who could just walk, as soft and as dimpled a little atom as ever came to a wolf's cave at night. He looked up into Father Wolf's face and laughed. "Is that a man's cub?" said Mother Wolf. "I've never seen one. Bring it here." A wolf accustomed to moving his own cubs can, if necessary, mouth an egg without breaking it, and though Father Wolf's jaws closed right on the child's back, not a tooth even scratched the skin as he laid it down among the cubs. "How little, how naked, and how bold," said Mother Wolf softly. The baby was pushing his way between the cubs to get close to the warm hide. "Hi! He is taking his meal with the others. And so this is a man's cub. Now, was there ever a wolf that could boast of a man's cub among her children?" "I've heard now and again of such a thing, but never in our pack or in my time," said Father Wolf. "He's altogether without hair, and I could kill him with a touch of my foot. But see, he looks up, and is not afraid. Suddenly, the moonlight was blocked out of the mouth of the cave, for Shere Khan's great square head and shoulders were thrust into the entrance. "Shere Khan does us great honor," said Father Wolf, but his eyes were very angry. "What does Shere Khan need?" "My quarry, a man's cub went this way," said Shere Khan. "Its parents have run off. Give it to me." Shere Khan had jumped at a woodcutter's campfire, as Father Wolf had said, and was furious from the pain of his burned feet. But Father Wolf knew that the mouth of the cave was too narrow for a tiger to come in by. Even where he was, Shere Khan's shoulders and forepaws were cramped for want of room, as a man's would be if he tried to fight in a battle. "The wolves are a free people," said Father Wolf. "They take orders from the head of the pack, and not from any striped cattle killer. The man's cub is ours, to kill if we choose." "What talk is this of choosing? Am I to stand nosing into your dog's den for my fair dues?" The tiger's roar filled the cave with thunder. Mother Wolf shook herself clear of the cubs and sprang forward, her eyes like two green moons in the darkness, facing the blazing eyes of Shere Khan. "It is I, Rakshar the demon, who answers. The man's cub is mine, Lungri. He shall not be killed. He shall live to run with a pack and to hunt with a pack. And in the end, look you, hunter of little naked cubs, he shall hunt thee. Now get hence, or back thou goest to thy mother, lamer than ever thou camest into the world. Go!" Shere Khan might have faced Father Wolf, but he could not stand up against Mother Wolf, for he knew that where he was, she had all the advantage of the ground and would fight to the death. So he backed out of the cave mouth growling, and when he was clear he shouted, "Each dog barks in his own backyard. We will see what the pack will say to this fostering of man cubs. The cub is mine, and to my teeth he will come in the end." Mother Wolf threw herself down, panting among the cubs, and Father Wolf said to her gravely, "Shere Khan speaks this much truth. The cub must be shown to the pack. Wilt thou still keep him, Mother?" "Keep him?" she gasped. "He came naked by night, alone and very hungry, yet he was not afraid. Look, he's pushed one of my babes to one side already. And that lame butcher would have killed him and would have run off to the Waingunga, while the villagers here hunted through all our lairs in revenge. Keep him? Assuredly I will keep him. Lie still, little frog. For Mowgli, the frog, I will call thee. The time will come when thou wilt hunt Shere Khan, as he has hunted thee." "But what will our pack say?" said Father Wolf. "The law of the jungle lays down very clearly that any wolf may, when he marries, withdraw from the pack he belongs to. But as soon as his cubs are old enough to stand on their feet, he must bring them to the pack council, which is generally held once a month at full moon, in order that the other wolves may identify them. After that inspection, the cubs are free to run where they please, and until they have killed their first buck, no excuse is accepted if a grown wolf of the pack kills one of them. The punishment is death where the murderer can be found." Father Wolf waited till his cubs could run a little, and then, on the night of the pack meeting, took them and Mowgli and Mother Wolf to the Council Rock, a hilltop covered with stones and boulders where 100 wolves could hide. Akela, the great grey lone wolf, who led all the pack by strength and cunning, lay out at full length on his rock, and below him sat 40 or more wolves of every size and colour, from badger-coloured veterans who could handle a buck alone, to young black 3-year-olds who thought they could. The lone wolf had led them for a year now. There was very little talking at the rock. The cubs tumbled over each other in the centre of the circle where their mothers and fathers sat, and now and again a senior wolf would go quietly up to a cub, look at him carefully, and return to his place on noiseless feet. Sometimes a mother would push her cub far out into the moonlight to be sure that he'd not been overlooked. Father Wolf pushed Mowgli the Frog, as they called him, into the centre, where he sat laughing and playing with some pebbles that glistened in the moonlight. A muffled roar came up from behind the rocks, the voice of Shere Khan, crying, "The cub is mine. Give him to me. What have the free people to do with a man's cub?" Akela never even twitched his ears. All he said was, "Look well, O wolves. What have the free people to do with the orders of any save the free people? Look well." There was a chorus of deep growls, and a young wolf in his 4th year flung back Shere Khan's question to Akela. "What have the free people to do with a man's cub?" Now the law of the jungle lays down that if there is any dispute as to the right of a cub to be accepted by the pack, he must be spoken for by at least 2 members of the pack who are not his father and mother. "Who speaks for this cub?" said Akela. "Among the free people, who speaks?" Then the only other creature who is allowed at the pack council, Baloo, the sleepy brown bear who teaches the wolf cubs the law of the jungle, rose up on his hindquarters and grunted. "I speak for the man's cub," he said. "There is no harm in a man's cub. Let him run with a pack and be entered with the others. I myself will teach him." "We need yet another," said Akela. "Baloo has spoken, and he is our teacher for the young cubs. Who speaks besides Baloo?" A black shadow dropped down into the circle. It was Bagheera, the Black Panther. Inky black all over, but with a panther marking showing up in certain lights like the pattern of watered silk. Everybody knew Bagheera, and nobody cared to cross his path. But he had a voice as soft as wild honey dripping from a tree, and a skin softer than down. "O Akela, and ye the free people," he purred, "I have no right in your assembly, but the law of the jungle says that if there is a doubt which is not a killing matter in regard to a new cub, the life of that cub may be bought at a price, and the law does not say who may or may not pay that price. Am I right?" "Good, good," said the young wolves, who were always hungry. "Listen to Bagheera. The cub can be bought for a price. It is the law." "To kill a naked cub is a shame," said Bagheera. "Besides, he may make better sport for you when he's grown. Baloo has spoken in his behalf. Now to Baloo's word, I will add 1 bull, and a fat one, newly killed, not half a mile from here, if ye will accept the man's cub according to the law." There was a clamour of scores of voices saying, "Let him run with a pack. Where is the bull, Bagheera? Let him be accepted." And then came Akela's deep bay, crying, Look well, O wolves." Mowgli was still deeply interested in the pebbles, and he did not notice when the wolves came and looked at him one by one. At last they all went down the hill for the dead bull, and only Akela, Bagheera, Baloo, and Mowgli's own wolves were left. Shere Khan roared still in the night, for he was very angry that Mowgli had not been handed over to him. "Aye, roar well," said Bagheera under his whiskers, "for the time comes when this naked thing will make thee roar to another tune, or I know nothing of man." "It was well done," said Akela. "Men and their cubs are very wise. He may be a help in time." Akela was thinking of the time that comes to every leader of every pack when his strength goes from him and he gets feebler and feebler, till at last he is killed by the wolves and a new leader comes up. "Take him away," he said to Father Wolf, "and train him as befits one of the free people." And that is how Mowgli was entered into the Seeonee wolf pack at the price of a bull and on Baloo's good word. Mowgli grew up with the cubs, though they, of course, were grown wolves almost before he was a child, and Father Wolf taught him his business and the meaning of things in the jungle, till every rustle in the grass, every breath of the warm night air, every note of the owls above his head, every scratch of a bat's claws as it roosted for a while in a tree, and every splash of every little fish jumping in a pool meant just as much to him as the work of his office means to a businessman. When he was not learning, he sat out in the sun and slept, and ate, and went to sleep again. When he felt dirty or hot, he swam in the forest pools, and when he wanted honey, he climbed up into the trees for it, and that Bagheera showed him how to do. He took his place at the Council Rock, too, when the pack met, and there he discovered that if he stared hard at any wolf, the wolf would be forced to drop his eyes, and so he used to stare for fun. At other times, he would pick the long thorns out of the pads of his friends, for wolves suffer terribly from thorns and burrs in their coats. He would go down the hillside into the cultivated lands by night and look very curiously at the villagers in their huts. But he had a mistrust of men, because Bagheera showed him a square box with a drop gate so cunningly hidden in the jungle that he nearly walked into it, and told him that it was a trap. He loved better than anything else to go with Bagheera into the dark, warm heart of the forest, to sleep all through the drowsy day, and at night to see how Bagheera did his killing. Bagheera killed right and left as he felt hungry, and so did Mowgli. And he grew and grew, strong as a boy must grow who does not know that he is learning any lessons and who has nothing in the world to think of except things to eat. Mother Wolf told him once or twice that Shere Khan was not a creature to be trusted, and that some day he must kill him. But though a young wolf would have remembered that advice every hour, Mowgli forgot it because he was only a boy, though he would have called himself a wolf if he'd been able to speak in any human tongue. Shere Khan was always crossing his path in the jungle, for as Akela grew older and feebler, the lame tiger had come to be great friends with the younger wolves of the pack who followed him for scraps, a thing that Akela would never have allowed if he dared to push his authority to the proper bounds. Then Shere Khan would flatter them and wonder that such fine young hunters were content to be led by a dying wolf and a man's cub. "They tell me," Shere Khan would say, "that at council ye dare not look him between the eyes." And the young wolves would growl and bristle. 10 years passed quickly, and then on one very warm day, a new notion came to Bagheera, born of something that he'd heard. He said to Mowgli, "Little brother, how often have I told thee that Shere Khan is thy enemy?" "As many times as there are nuts on that palm," said Mowgli, who naturally could not count. "What of it? Shere Khan is all long tail and loud talk, like Mao the peacock." "Little brother, Shere Khan dare not kill thee in the jungle, but remember, Akela is very old, and soon the day comes when he cannot kill his buck, and then he will be leader no more. Many of the wolves that looked thee over when thou was brought to the council first are too old, and the young wolves believe, as Shere Khan has taught them, that a man-cub has no place with the pack. In a little time, thou wilt be a man." "And what is a man that he should not run with his brothers?" said Mowgli. "I was born in the jungle. I've obeyed the law of the jungle, and there is no wolf of ours from whose paws I have not pulled a thorn. Surely they're my brothers." Bagheera stretched himself at full length and half shut his eyes. "Little brother," said he, "feel under my jaw." Mowgli put up his strong brown hand, and just under Bagheera's silky chin, where the giant rolling muscles were all hid by the glossy hair, he came upon a little bald spot. "There is no one in the jungle that knows that I, Bagheera, carry that mark. The mark of the collar. I was born among men, and it was among men that my mother died, in the cages of the king's palace at Udipore. It was because of this that I paid the price for thee at the council when thou wast a little naked cub." Bagheera paused for a moment, and then continued, "Yes, I too was born among men. They fed me behind bars from an iron pan, till one night I felt that I was Bagheera the panther, and no man's plaything, and I broke the silly lock with one blow of my paw and came away. Thou art a man's cub, and even as I return to my jungle, so thou must go back to men at last, to the men who are thy brothers, if thou art not killed in the council." "But why should any wish to kill me?" said Mowgli. "Look at me," said Bagheera, and Mowgli looked at him steadily between the eyes. The big panther turned his head away in half a minute. "That is why," he said, shifting his paw on the leaves. "Not even I can look thee between the eyes, and I was born among men, and I love thee, little brother. The others, they hate thee, because their eyes cannot meet thine, because thou art wise, because thou hast pulled out thorns from their feet, because thou art a man." "I did not know these things," said Mowgli sullenly, and he frowned under his heavy black eyebrows. "It is in my heart," said Bagheera, "that when Akela misses his next kill, and at each hunt it costs him more to pin the buck, the pack will turn against him and against thee. This is what thou must do." Mowgli listened carefully. "Go down quickly to the men's huts in the valley, and take some of the red flower which they grow there, so that when the time comes thou mayst have even a stronger friend than I, or Baloo, or those of the pack that love thee." By red flower, Bagheera meant fire. Only no creature in the jungle will call fire by its proper name. Every beast lives in deadly fear of it, and invents 100 ways of describing it. "The red flower," said Mowgli, "that grows outside their huts in the twilight. I will get some." "There speaks the man's cub," said Bagheera proudly. "Remember that it grows in little pots. Get one swiftly, and keep it by thee for time of need." "Good," said Mowgli. "I go." And he bounded away. "That is a man. That is all a man," said Bagheera to himself. "Shere Khan, never was a blacker hunting than that frog hunt of thine 10 years ago." Mowgli was far through the forest, running hard, and his heart was hot in him. As the evening mists began to rise, he plunged downward through the bushes to the stream at the bottom of the valley and into the croplands where the villagers lived. He came into the village and crept up to a hut on the outskirts. Then he pressed his face close to the window and watched the fire on the hearth. He saw the husbandman's wife get up and feed it with black lumps, and when the morning came and the mists were all white and cold, he saw the man's child pick up a wicker pot plastered inside with earth, fill it with lumps of red-hot charcoal, and go out to tend the cows in the byre. He strode round the corner and met the boy, took the pot from his hand, and disappeared into the mist while the boy howled with fear. "They are very like me," he said, blowing into the pot as he'd seen the woman do. "This thing will die if I do not give it things to eat." And he dropped twigs and dried bark on the red stuff. Halfway up the hill he met Bagheera with the morning dew shining like moonstones on his coat. "Akela has missed," said the panther. "They would have killed him last night, but they needed thee also. They were looking for thee on the hill." "I was among the ploughed lands. I'm ready. See?" Mowgli held up the firepot. All that day Mowgli sat in the cave, tending his firepot and dipping dry branches into it to see how they looked. He found a branch that satisfied him, and in the evening he went to the council. Akela the lone wolf lay by the side of his rock as a sign that the leadership of the pack was open. And Shere Khan, with his following of scrap-fed wolves, walked to and fro openly, being flattered. Bagheera lay close to Mowgli, and the firepot was between Mowgli's knees. When they were all gathered together, Shere Khan began to speak, a thing he would never have dared to do when Akela was in his prime. "He has no right," whispered Bagheera. "Say so. He is a dog's son. He will be frightened." Mowgli sprang to his feet. "Free people," he cried. "Does Shere Khan lead the pack? What has a tiger to do with our leadership? Seeing that the leadership is yet open and being asked to speak, Shere Khan began. By whom, said Mowgli. Are we all jackals to fall on this cattle butcher? The leadership of the pack is with the pack alone. Akela raised his old head wearily. Free people, and ye too, jackals of Shere Khan. For many seasons I have led ye to and from the kill, and in all my time not one has been trapped or maimed. Now I have missed my kill. Ye know how that plot was made. Ye know how he brought me up to an untried buck to make my weakness known. It was cleverly done. Your right is to kill me here on the Council Rock now. Therefore, I ask, who comes to make an end of the lone wolf? For it is my right, by the law of the jungle, that ye come one by one. There was a long hush, for no single wolf cared to fight Akela to the death. Then Shere Khan roared, "Ugh, what have we to do with this toothless old fool? He's doomed to die. It is the man cub who has lived too long. Free people, he was my meat from the first. Give him to me. He's troubled the jungle for 10 seasons. He is a man, a man's child, and from the marrow of my bones I hate him." Then more than half the pack yelled, "A man! A man! What has a man to do with us? Let him go to his own place." "And turn all the people of the villages against us," clamored Shere Khan. "No! Give him to me!" Akela lifted his head again and said, "He has eaten our food. He has slept with us. He's driven game for us. He has broken no word of the law of the jungle." "He's a man," snarled the pack, and most of the wolves began to gather round Shere Khan, whose tail was beginning to twitch. "Now the business is in thy hands," said Bagheera to Mowgli. "We can do no more except fight." Mowgli stood upright, the fire pot in his hands. Then he stretched out his arms and yawned in the face of the council. But he was furious with rage and sorrow, for wolf-like, the wolves had never told him how they hated him. "There is no need for this dog's jabber," he cried. "Ye have told me so often tonight that I am a man, and indeed I would have been a wolf with you to my life's end, that I feel your words are true. So I do not call ye my brothers any more, but dogs, as a man should. What ye will do and what ye will not do is not yours to say. The matter is with me, and that we may see the matter more plainly, I, the man, have brought here a little of the red flower which ye, dogs, fear." He flung the fire-pot on the ground, and some of the red coals lit a tuft of dried moss that flared up as all the council drew back in terror before the leaping flames. Mowgli thrust his dead branch into the fire till the twigs lit and crackled, and whirled it above his head among the cowering wolves. "Good," he said, staring round slowly. "I see that ye are dogs. I go from you to my own people, but I will be more merciful than ye are, because I was all but your brother in blood. I promise that when I am a man among men, I will not betray ye to men as ye have betrayed me." He kicked the fire with his foot, and the sparks flew up. "But here is a debt to pay before I go." He strode forward to where Shere Khan sat blinking stupidly at the flames, and caught him by the tuft on his chin. Bagheera followed in case of accidents. "Up, dog!" Mowgli cried. "Up when a man speaks, or I will set that coat ablaze." Shere Khan's ears lay flat back on his head, and he shut his eyes, for the blazing branch was very near. "This cattle-killer said he would kill me in the council because he'd not killed me when I was a cub. Thus do we beat dogs when we are men." He beat Shere Khan over the head with a branch, and the tiger whimpered and whined in an agony of fear. "Go now, singed jungle cat, but remember when next I come to the Council Rock, as a man should come, it will be with Shere Khan's hide on my head. For the rest, Akela goes free to live as he pleases. Ye will not kill him, because that is not my will. Nor do I think that ye will sit here any longer, lolling out your tongues as though ye were somebodies, instead of dogs whom I drive out thus. Go!" The fire was burning furiously at the end of the branch, and Mowgli struck right and left round the circle, and the wolves ran howling with the sparks burning their fur. At last, there were only Akela, Bagheera, and perhaps 10 wolves that had taken Mowgli's part. Then something began to hurt Mowgli inside him, as he'd never been hurt in his life before, and he caught his breath and sobbed, and the tears ran down his face. "What is it?" he said. "I do not wish to leave the jungle, and I do not know what this is." "Now thou art a man," said Bagheera, "and a man's cub no longer." Mowgli sat and cried as though his heart would break, and he had never cried in all his life before. "Now," he said, "I will go to men. But first I must say farewell to my mother." And he went to the cave where she lived with Father Wolf, and he cried on her coat, while the 4 cubs howled miserably. "You will not forget me?" said Mowgli. "Never while we can follow a trail," said the cubs. "Come to the foot of the hill when thou art a man, and we will talk to thee, and we will come into the croplands to play with thee by night." "Come soon," said Father Wolf. "Oh, wise little frog, come again soon, for we be old, thy mother and I." "Come soon," said Mother Wolf, "little naked son of mine, for I love thee more than I ever loved my cubs." "I will surely come," said Mowgli, "and when I come it will be to lay out Shere Khan's hide upon the Council Rock. Do not forget me. Tell them in the jungle never to forget me." The dawn was beginning to break when Mowgli went down the hillside alone to meet those mysterious things that are called men. Kaa's hunting. All that is told here happened some time before Mowgli was turned out of the Seeonee wolf pack, in the days when Baloo was teaching him the law of the jungle. The big, serious old brown bear was delighted to have so quick a pupil, for the young wolves will only learn as much of the law of the jungle as applies to their own pack and tribe. But Mowgli, as a man-cub, had to learn a great deal more. Sometimes Bagheera the Black Panther would come lounging through the jungle to see how his pet was getting on, and would purr with his head against a tree while Mowgli recited the day's lesson to Baloo. The boy could climb almost as well as he could swim, and swim almost as well as he could run. So Baloo, the teacher of the law, taught him the wood and water laws, how to tell a rotten branch from a sound one, how to speak politely to the wild bees when he came upon a hive, what to say to Mang the Bat when he disturbed him in the branches at midday, and how to warn the water snakes in the pools before he splashed down among them. Then, too, Mowgli was taught the stranger's hunting call, which must be repeated aloud till it is answered, whenever one of the jungle people hunts outside his own grounds. It means, translated, "Give me leave to hunt here because I am hungry," and the answer is, "Hunt then for food, but not for pleasure." All this will show you how much Mowgli had to learn by heart, and he grew very tired of saying the same thing over 100 times. But, as Baloo said to Bagheera one day when Mowgli had been cuffed and was in a bad temper, "A man-cub is a man-cub, and he must learn all the law of the jungle. No one then is to be feared." "Except his own tribe," said Bagheera under his breath. And then, aloud to Mowgli, he said, "Have a care for my ribs, little brother. What is all this dancing up and down?" Mowgli had been trying to make himself heard by pulling at Bagheera's shoulder fur and kicking hard. When the two listened to him, he was shouting at the top of his voice, One day I shall have a tribe of my own, and lead them through the branches all day long." "What is this new folly, little dreamer of dreams?" said Bagheera. "I shall throw branches and dirt at old Baloo," Mowgli went on. "They have promised me this." Baloo's big paw scooped Mowgli off Bagheera's back, and as the boy lay between the big forepaws, he could see the bear was angry. "Mowgli," said Baloo, "thou hast been talking with the monkey people." Mowgli looked at Bagheera to see if the panther was angry too, and Bagheera's eyes were as hard as jade stones. "Well, they gave me nuts and pleasant things to eat," said Mowgli, "and they carried me in their arms up to the top of the trees and said I was their blood brother, except that I had no tail and should be their leader some day." "They have no leader," said Bagheera. "They lie. They have always lied." "They were very kind and bade me come again. Why have I never been taken among the monkey people? They stand on their feet as I do. They do not hit me with hard paws." "Listen, man cub," said the bear, and his voice rumbled like thunder on a hot night. "I have taught thee all the law of the jungle for all the peoples of the jungle, except the monkey folk who live in the trees. They have no law. They are outcasts. They have no speech of their own, but use the stolen words which they overhear when they listen and peep and wait up above in the branches. Their way is not our way. They are without leaders. They boast and chatter and pretend that they are a great people about to do great affairs in the jungle. But the falling of a nut turns their minds to laughter, and all is forgotten. We of the jungle have no dealings with them. We do not drink where the monkeys drink. We do not go where the monkeys go. We do not hunt where they hunt. They are very many, evil, dirty, shameless, and they desire, if they have any fixed desire, to be noticed by the jungle people. But we do not notice them, even when they throw nuts and filth on our heads." He'd hardly spoken when a shower of nuts and twigs spattered down through the branches. They could hear coughings and howlings and angry jumpings high up in the air among the thin branches. The two trotted